Welcome to Briefest Conspiracy.
This week, coronavirus continues.
So if you're new to our channel, please like and subscribe. You're going to be in the house for the next 12 weeks, so you need all the YouTube videos you can get, surely.
Yeah, that's a fair point, yeah.
So please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, it really does help us out. Right, so this is our second coronavirus video, and I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really taking the first one very seriously. But since then, they've shut the pubs, and now I'm taking it more seriously.
Well, yeah, I think that, yeah. I think everybody really takes that seriously when they can no longer go for a quick couple on a Friday.
There mean no milk in the shops. That was a stress. Fair enough, first of all, the UHT milk disappeared. That's fair enough. People were panic buying. They were getting the stuff that lasts. But then the fresh milk started to disappear, and then you actually do start thinking, now I wish I'd panic bought, because
and hence the snowball panic buying thing that happens. Yeah,
it's genuinely a problem. I'm going in there thinking I can't believe how much I miss pasta. And there isn't any. There hasn't been any for weeks, and it's how long is this going to continue? You know?
Yeah.
Right, stop panic buying. And if you have been panic buying, if you've got some plastics, I need some. So, as we're a conspiracy channel, we shouldn't really sit here discussing ASDA.
No.
So
it just doesn't take much to panic people, does it? I mean,
No.
Individually, people can be intelligent. People together as a group,
we're rubbish, yeah.
we're quite dumb, aren't we, in our reactions to situations? And this panic buying's kind of proving that as a group.
I'm waiting for a mob mentality when people actually start thinking that food is scarce, and they won't be queuing nicely outside Asda in the car park. They'll be smashing the doors down. But let's hope we don't get to that point.
I don't. Well, hopefully we won't get to that point. I don't think the fatality level of this is high enough that you'll interrupt the international food supply chain well enough to cause that kind of situation to occur.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
I like how they've done this, this key worker list. So anybody they've closed the schools, but anybody that is a key worker can still send their kids to school. And then they send this quite vague list out, and apparently 75% of people have gone, well, I'm that. So the schools are going, no, seriously, just key workers. Because, well, technically, my wife's an accountant. Technically, she's on the list for key workers because she happens to work for Veolia, which is a waste disposal company. So even though she's an accountant, we're sending our kids to school Monday.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But I think the numbers of people sending their kids to school is a lot higher than they were expecting. But so anyway, the internet is rife with different theories and things, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Some of them interesting, some of them are just really indicative of why people are getting so scared, and we've got one story at the end which is particularly relevant to that. That is, I personally believe, nonsense from beginning to end, but it really does show the sort of stuff that's going around the internet and social media, and one of the reasons why we're so damn scared. Also the fact that, like, Fox News and that's one thing. I saw in the interviews, Sky News is kind of like a watered down version of Fox News in America over here. So the BBC asked a question about I don't know, it's something to do with the schools or things. Sky News went, can you tell us how many people are going to die? And our Prime Minister was there going, well, we don't know. And it's like, no, how many people are going to die? And make it like, it's just like, it's not.
Yes.
We need to calm down a little bit and have some sense. Or this is going to get bad. And I tell you what, it'll end up getting to a point where there's more deaths from, people panicking than there are from the damn disease. So, but we haven't seen that yet. And
hopefully that won't come. Yeah. But yeah, certainly something that could come if situation.
Right.
But I suppose if you look at China's supposedly recovered now, haven't they? And
they came down with it with an iron fist, and that's why.
Yeah, but so they've only been on lockdown for about 2 months in Wuhan to achieve that.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show what is possible to do if Italy goes that way.
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing, though. Do we believe China's numbers? Do we believe the numbers China are telling us?
Possibly not. I do think that they obviously tried to keep it hidden, didn't they, from the world for the first few weeks before announcing it to the world. What was it, towards the end of January, when they'd been having cases since, I don't know,
It was
mid to the end of
late
December, I think late
November,
December, of pneumonia from an unknown cause. Although it's far more likely that it's just that the people that haven't produced any real symptoms and
I
haven't
think
been
probably
tested.
a lot of people just died because they weren't being tested. They died of flu, and well, that's one of the big ones at the moment. China is saying this didn't start in Wuhan. This started in America, and they're calling it the America. But I think that's partly in response to it's a political thing because Trump insists on keep calling it the Chinese disease, which is again not helpful, Mr. President.
Right,
but he's just
moron.
he's
But
just.
yeah.
I love that the first when this first started kicking off. He was up there with all his health advisors, and they're all listening. They're going, "We need to really worry about this. We need to be prepared. There's going to be a lot more cases. There will be deaths. We need to be prepared for this." And then he came up last and went, "We've had 15 cases this week. We'll have none next week. Don't worry about it, people." And then he says it's the invisible enemy, and we will have total victory.
Yes, I
Tell that
did
to
see
people that are dying now.
You don't really need that kind of war terminology, do you, used for a disease? But you are seeing that I suppose that same thing with our elected officials here of sort of.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as Trump. But
No,
yeah,
no. They are. They're still making references to
a fight, a
a
battle.
an enemy and a war and rationing and all the stuff that comes along with it.
I think that's partly because they're desperately trying to get people to take this seriously. Like me 2 weeks ago, who wasn't taking it seriously. I've been washing my hands more, but other than that, I wasn't taking it seriously. And now, obviously, I've changed my opinion.
Right. So they're not. The scientific modellers have probably given the government estimates on what they think the death range could be based on how far they think it will go through a population in a particular country.
Modelling from the
modelling from Italy and from China. I imagine that if all the governments in the world are locking down their countries, closing down airports, they're pretty scared at the high end of the death estimates. Otherwise, they wouldn't all be adopting this approach.
But we can all rely on one thing, that our government worries about money and our finances primarily over most things. For them to shut down basically, what was it, a third of the economy, 2/3 of the economy gone as well, to just shut it down and say, right, you're not going to pubs, you're not going to restaurants, you're not going on holiday, you're not doing anything. This is going to have an impact on our economy for the next decade.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And for them to do that, they are worried.
Of course they are. So, are they playing the virus up more than it is, or less? I'd argue at the moment, probably less than it is, even though there's pretty much intense media coverage, and it's all anyone's talking about anywhere. Probably due to the shutdown of most of the entertainment, such as sports.
Do you remember when Brexit was a problem? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I haven't heard that word for a while. To be fair.
One of the idiot reporters did actually say, "Well, is this going to affect the Brexit deal?" And Boris just laughed. It's sort of like, we're not worrying about that in the moment. So we've got more important things to deal with right now. So I did quite like that.
And whether we're technically or not technically part of Europe or not, I think that one goes by the wayside.
Yeah. One of the things I was interested in, what I was thinking about the other day, though, was a lot of these New World Order conspiracy theorists and have been going on and about our freedoms,
Yes,
and how our government, you think the Georgia Guidestones as well, and that warning that we need to, slim down our population and all this sort of thing. One of the things they keep going on about is our government want to bring in laws that will limit our ability to move. They want to limit our powers, our freedoms. They want to be able to close the borders whenever they want. They want to be able to close businesses whenever they want. They want to take control. These new laws, our government has just issued the coronavirus defence laws. I think that's what it's called, something like that. It's an encyclopedia. It's about that thick, this document. It shores up or reinforces all these things they're talking about. Closing borders. Quarantine, being forced quarantines, which technically was already kind of legal in this country, but it was complicated. It's now very easy and you can be forced to stay in your home now. That you can actually be arrested for not staying in your home, which you couldn't be before, and now you can.
Yeah, and I guess these laws are coming in, or should be coming in, temporarily, but they're not. They come in as permanent law.
That's not how our
and then
legal
have to be
system
repealed,
works,
don't
yeah.
they? Yeah.
So our legal system, if you bring in a law, it has to then be removed. That's why we've still got stupid laws on our statutes from hundreds of years ago. From like that, technically, if you shoot a Welshman entering Shrewsbury, you haven't broken a law. It's because it was a law from hundreds of years ago.
With a crossbow from a certain castle.
Yeah, you have to do it from a certain
like
distance or something. Those laws are still technically laws in this country, but obviously they've been... Technically, hanging somebody is still legal in this country, but there's other laws that have superseded it, sort of thing. But that law actually still sits on the books. We could still have the death penalty in this country.
Right, okay.
So, I always think this feels like Patriot 2 to me. You know, it feels like the sequel, bigger and better than the first, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah. I do think there's some credence to what the NWO conspiracy theorists are thinking.
New World Order. If there is... I would think it's right. When we were talking about September 11th in our previous series, we did a false flag video. And one of the things we were talking about was whether their government actually caused the incident or whether they just take advantage. It doesn't really make a difference. In this case, I don't believe that Corona is it was manipulated or created by the government, even though we're going to talk about some theories in a bit that suggest they were. I just think our government and American government and everyone else's are very good at taking advantage of these situations when they happen.
Yes.
And they will... It's
and
a smash and grab.
They've jumped on it to get the laws passed that perhaps some of the powers that be have been trying to get the politicians to pass for many years.
I don't think it's all of them. I don't think they're all sat around going, closed doors, you know, in a dark room.
No.
We could steal everyone's freedom.
Exactly.
They're not doing that.
No.
A lot of it is to think. But you just know that there's a room somewhere that people go, just add that amendment. Just add this amendment. This will do. Down the road, this will be good.
Yeah. It's like George Carlin said, you think that rich people never get together with like interests and formulate plans?
Yeah. They do.
You know, it obviously happens. And they've got the power and influence to make big things happen.
Yep.
So, you know.
That is a little scary. That this virus, you know, can potentially change our world again, like September 11 did.
Yes.
And we won't quite see the outcome. You know, we won't quite see the end game because the pubs shutting and the football being off. But isn't it amazing what lengths Man United fans will go to make sure Liverpool can't win the league? We'll create an entire virus and just shut down football. Just I actually genuinely...
There are any memes on the internet of Ollie wearing like a surgical outfit with like an electron microscope or something.
Yeah. The one I like is it was invented by women to get men to self-isolate and get us out of the pub, make us self-isolate and get us get all the housework done and all the jobs done. That's I quite like that. Right, so America and China are still playing politics with this crap. So, like we said, Trump keeps calling it the Chinese disease, which is just ridiculous. But their foreign minister, Zhao Lijian, recently came out and actually has blamed the Americans for it and said it's actually come from America. And he's got a few good points as well. He noted a Robert Redfield, which was an American scientist, did a speech on March 11th, and he actually said he thinks Corona was in America far sooner than we realised because we were seeing deaths from flu, or what we thought was influenza, but actually may have been Corona. The Chinese then point to the fact that the Military World Games were in October 2019.
Yes.
And hundreds of Americans were in Wuhan. That's where the games were held.
Does seem quite a big coincidence that, given the 1918 epidemic of influenza, they reckon started in American military base. It was then shipped over from America over to the front lines.
Because obviously it went off during World War One.
Yeah,
19.
When America got involved, they shipped a load of troops over, and they reckon they took it to the front lines.
And
infected a load of people there,
died.
Mutated, and then an even stronger, more fatal version of it was the second wave.
That was probably the last time we had one of these like worldwide really bad pandemic sort of thing, and and nobody really noticed because World War One was going on at the time, and it was literally until like the 70s and people started actually going, oh, do you remember that 20 million people that died during Spanish influenza? And people was like, no. And nobody knew about this, and it was a worldwide pandemic. You could argue worse than what we're going through now.
Yeah,
Killed 20 million
potentially,
people at a time when there was only about, 2 billion people on the planet at the time?
something like that. Might even be lower than that. I don't know.
So, you're talking about a percentage point of view. And there are, connections being made between Spanish influenza and this, and they're saying that this it could be as bad. But if it's as bad, it won't kill 20 million people, it'll kill 60 or 80 million people because there's 4 times as many people now. So,
well, yeah,
from a ratio point of view, it's...
The fatality rate, the Spanish influenza was 2%. So if 80% of the world's population got it, like we said in our last video, of 8 billion people, is it now?
Yeah.
I think
8, yeah.
Is it 8 billion now? And 80% of 8 billion get it. You're talking,
yeah, all of us. 77 billion people ill.
Yeah,
it's like...
even if you said 6.5 billion, just round it down a little bit, then you work out 2% of that. Then you're talking hundreds of millions worldwide.
Well, let's talk about the numbers a little bit, all right? Because this is interesting. And then the thing about we don't really trust the Chinese. We can't trust our own governments either because they've stopped testing. In the UK now, if you're minor, unwell, that you can't get tested. It's only if you basically end up in hospital and really, really poorly. In Italy, they admit if you die at home, if you don't go to the hospital, if you basically, unless you die in hospital from this, they don't count you in the official numbers.
Yeah.
So
basically, the world statistics are basically, because of the testing in this country, are going to be very useless. Other countries that have adopted more thorough testing of like all citizens, they'll have much better numbers and be able to give much more accurate fatality rates. So those are the countries you want to watch for the accurate fatality rate.
We're trying to bring in a test at the moment that will see if you've had it, because that's really important to see, because they want to be able to see how well this disease spreads, or how quickly it spreads. And one of the ways of doing that is to see who's had it, barely realised, or been asymptomatic, so they haven't basically had symptoms, and then they'll be able to tell really how wide this is spread and how many people have had it and not even known, sort of thing. So that will be
good
future.
when that comes in.
America are going to come in and save the day anyway. Trump has said that they've already got, and this will be like, say, a total victory, and that will be sorted in a few weeks.
Trump's going to end up looking very stupid because unfortunately America is a nation that is riddled with some of the main health problems that are listed as contributory factors, along with being old.
And their health system is the most. So they have an amazing health system at the top end, and the like third world health system for 2/3 of the population, which they can't afford health insurance.
The health system, unfortunately, is a private system that is very much geared for the wealthy.
I would say our NHS isn't quite as good as a lot of the top end American, and health service. It's not as good, but the difference is ours is available to everybody.
No, I just think with the health issues they've got, they're going to end up probably having a higher fatality rate in America.
Western countries, anyway. I think. I think countries like in Africa and places like this, there is no health service, so obviously there will be high percentages, high numbers. Their advantage is that they don't move. The disease hopefully isn't spreading through those countries as quickly because they don't move around as much. Poorer countries, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They don't have the health service we have. They don't have the health service America has. So there are some amazing things going on though. I was watching on the news yesterday. They're trying to get ventilators. They haven't got enough ventilators. They've designed like this really easy, quick to build one, and a bunch of companies are getting together in like this consortium and saying we're going to build them. As soon as this design is finalised, we're going to smash them through. But some of the companies like McLaren, the car company, the racing car company, they're involved. They're going to be building them. They've got high-end precision engineers sat around doing nothing. So let's build some ventilators.
Let's build some ventilators. Yeah, great. That's lovely to hear. A nice story about that.
Amazing. Yeah. It's like there's an amazing thing about when things go really wrong, it pulls people together.
It does, and I don't think people can underestimate the number of deaths this might cause, and therefore we should maximise every possible effort to try and help in any which way we can. So let's hope that it does bring us all together, and
let's hope so.
And hopefully we'll see that as a reflection in the number of deaths perhaps not being as high per head of population here as other places. But
So finally, then we'll talk about some of these documents that are bashing around the internet and bashing around social media. The one that really caught my eye was actually sent to me in a message on Facebook connected to our first Corona video, was this Corona Uncovered document. Supposedly written by a senior military intelligence officer in China, who he says his English is good, and he was able to write the document in English because he studied in Western university and got a doctorate in Western universities. He says this isn't a disease like this, that it is a bioweapon. It was created by the Chinese.
Well, it was something, wasn't it, that supposedly they were working on to control the situation in Hong Kong.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to spray all the Hong Kong people and calm them down and make them a bit thick. That was the plan.
And more susceptible to government control, perhaps.
Yeah, more just suggestion things, yeah. So it was tested on some Islamic extremists. Seemed to work. They brought it to Hubei province for second phase testing, and it did work initially, but then turned into a horrific illness. And the description he uses is that people melted. It sounds very much like Ebola to me. You know, they have massive internal bleeding, blood coming out the eyes, blood coming out the thing, and and it has a 100% kill. So if you get it,
I don't
you
think
die.
Ebola's quite 100. I think it's more like 80.
No, but this disease, he says, is 100%. He says it's
right.
horrific.
Okay.
Initially, the Chinese tried to seal it. They actually didn't want this, but he actually talks about a lot that the Chinese, American, Western governments actually collaborate far more than we realise. And anything where there's self-interest, like controlling the population, they actually very strongly collaborate.
I do believe that.
Yeah, so
I do
these
believe
are
that. I do believe that there is some collaboration between government on controlling
That's
populations.
complete new world order, though, isn't it? You know.
It is, but I do believe that there is probably some element of that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
He's probably not wrong there, but that's
It's probably
probably
I agree
the
with
only bit I agree with.
that. Yeah. So then he says basically they tried to clear all this up. The Americans got really interested and went, "Oh, what you got there?" And they were sort of like holding it behind the back, going, "Nothing. I haven't got anything." The Americans then thought they must have something amazing. He talks about them wanting to use it in Venezuela, but they kept hinting there's a problem in Venezuela they wanted to deal with, and they wanted this chemical for that.
Yeah.
So the Chinese sold them a sample. That is when it got out, basically. So even this guy's trying to blame the Americans. They're an easy target. They're generally hard to blame. So basically, he says this got out. That's why China locked it down. And actually, there are millions dying in China, not thousands, millions. That hospital they built in 2 weeks wasn't a hospital.
Yeah.
It was a incinerator, basically. And he says he was there.
Okay.
So
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of bodies to get rid of, and you can't let people bury the dead in that kind of situation with a contagious virus. So, I could believe they built incinerator capacity within that new hospital. It'd be dumb not to if they're building a new hospital to treat patients that they knew a certain percentage were going to die and they need to dispose of the bodies. Why wouldn't you?
okay, exactly. Yeah.
But again,
He argues as well that the worldwide governments and WHO and all these people, World Health Organization, are basically using flu season to make us to lock us all down, to stop us moving around, stop us doing, because this virus is spreading quickly. It's killing millions. It's killing everyone it comes in contact with, and it has spread to other countries. So they're basically using a flu-like illness to cause us to lock us down. As the excuse, which actually is logical, kind of does make sense. You know, we're all getting flu. We all get ill. We will see thousands of deaths from flu in this country, even with corona. People seem to think that just because corona's gone, that all the other illnesses have gone away for some reason, and they haven't. We've still got flu.
I think in the UK they average over the last 5 years about 17,000.
Yeah, they do.
Deaths from
Some official numbers say 8,000. Some say 7 because sometimes some years it's much higher. And then next year it's not. But yeah, they reckon it's about 17,000
as an average over the last 5 years.
Which is crazy, isn't it? That's a lot of people. But
then if you look at Italy's death numbers, they're already Italy's population's quite similar to England's, isn't it? I believe maybe a bit less actually. I think the United Kingdom's about 70 million, isn't it? And then
Yeah, I think they're a little lower, but their elderly population's quite a bit higher.
yeah, I
than
think
us
they're about
as a
60 million,
percentage.
but as a
Yeah.
percentage, they've got much more older people,
Yeah.
which is probably why they're seeing much higher fatality rates. I
Yeah.
think nearer to 7% perhaps.
Yeah, 7 or 8%. Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that though. To be honest, hey,
I love that. So anyway, this guy's story, this document that's bashing around the internet, which I will put a connection, I will put a link to it in the description. He talks a lot in this thing about how he doesn't want to identify himself, and he's promised to his wife he wouldn't identify himself. But then he tells us lots of interesting detail that if I was the Chinese government, you could identify him in a pig in heartbeat. One of the stories he comes out with is he says it's excruciating pain when you first get this illness, so he put a woman out of her misery, he shot her, and he got in trouble with his bosses, and he promised to pay back the cost of a bullet, and then it went away. Horrible story. But again, it would be quite useful to identify this man. This man that has a wife, has a child, is a senior intelligence officer, went to a Western country to get his doctorate, and then this story about him shooting. I think you could pretty much be pretty sure who it was really quickly.
and having to pay for a single bullet out of his
Yeah.
wages that was deducted or whatever. I think you'd notice that on his
Yeah.
paycheck, wouldn't you?
So,
as well?
if
So you
this
could-
story is true, he's dead because he's not done a very good job of covering his tracks.
no, probably not.
But do we really think this story is even remotely true?
Well, I've listened to some of the health professionals around the world, particularly virologists and people that look at contagious disease, infection, etc. And they're pretty positive that this is just what can happen with a zoonotic jump. But they're kind of saying that nature's far better at creating these viruses at the moment than we could possibly be because of the nano scale. I mean, they're 135 nanometers across, aren't they, these viruses?
We can mess around with them, but it's not as...
I don't think we've got to the level quite with like where we're with like looking at DNA in mapping and sequencing DNA and starting to do gene splicing and that kind of stuff and cloning. I just don't know whether they've developed the technology to manipulate and cause specific mutations in viruses to make them how they want. I think nature's probably far better at doing that than we are.
And they would take advantage maybe if something appeared.
Yeah.
And spread it quicker. But I don't believe this story. But and the thing is, it genuinely makes me a little angry because there's lots of these stories jumping around the internet at the moment like this that are spreading fear and they're scaring the crap out of people.
Yep.
And we need to pull together. We need to wash our hands. We need to stop panic buying. And we need to try and look after each other. Stories like this don't help.
No, not at all.
And to that point about how things like there's a lot of suspicion out there, and I understand that these laws that are coming in, I'm suspicious about. I do think our government takes advantage of these things when they get a chance. I had one woman say to me, they'll go, it's just all fake. It's fake. It's not true. It's not happening. And her evidence for that was that it's called a novel coronavirus or novel coronavirus.
Which means new. Yes.
It just means new. She took it for the other meaning fiction. A novel, a book, not real. And I went, no, it just means we've not had it before. It's new.
Yes, I suppose he's not interacted with this particular strain. And these wet markets in China and across Asia are the perfect breeding ground in today's world for a zoonotic jump.
Yeah.
So I just think that's far more likely.
If you want to watch some
this is
racism, though,
engineered.
go on Fox News. Some of the things that's being talked about the Chinese and the Chinese culture is actually disgusting.
Really?
The way they say that they're barely a society. What sort of disgusting society would allow this sort of thing to happen where animals and people are interacting and it's just... but actually, I think the one thing maybe that will come from this is maybe these sort of, like you said, wet markets will be banned. And China's the perfect country. Just once they decide to do something, they just do it, don't they? So
I think China has already stepped in and banned the wet markets in China.
They'll be gone.
Or not, maybe not ban them entirely, but I think it's starting to look at imposing what it can to...
I'm sure it'll happen all over the world now.
But it's whether the rest of Asia will follow suit. But
we're just lucky this is really only affecting the elderly, and it's only got like a 2 roughly 2% mortality rate. It could be much higher. And remember as well, the treatment for this, there is no treatment. Basically, all they can do is give you as much oxygen as they can and hope you pull through. You know, there is no
testing
treatment.
some antivirals out, aren't they? I
Yeah.
think now on certain patients to see what's effective. They're using anti-malaria drugs in America.
Yeah, there's a few treatments they're trialing, aren't there? But right now there isn't anything. They just have to incubate you, basically. This terrifying picture of these guys with massive hoods.
And the Italian doctors are all warning as well. Don't get confused. This is not just a disease that's going to kill the elderly. They've got many patients in intensive care in their 40s as well.
Yeah, anybody with an underlying, vascular problem is really in trouble.
Yes,
yeah.
But I think there's even people that they're saying that don't have particular underlying health conditions in their 40s and 50s in the hospital. So it's relatively serious. I think we can trust the Italian doctors are not lying about the.
I think we are at that point
pressures
where we
they're
need
under.
to start taking this seriously, and even I will start taking this seriously.
Even if
I joke that I started taking it seriously and they shut the pubs and they cancelled my holiday that was going on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, we need to start taking this crap seriously.
Even if the fatality rate is markedly lower with the level of how contagious it is, it's like they're saying you're protecting others, aren't you, by following the social distancing rules.
But you think even at 2%, I'll put it this way, 2%, my street has 50 houses on it. That's maybe 200 people? Say maybe 150 people, but 200 would do the maths would be easy.
Yeah.
That's basically means if 4 people live in each house, one of those houses, everyone will die.
Yeah.
That's it at 2%. That's basically them. So we will all know. Chances are we will all know somebody that dies from corona. You know,
I think so.
And that's a scary. That's a sobering thought. So wash your damn hands.
Yes. Follow the advice. Yeah. Very much so.
All right. This probably won't be our last corona episode, and I'm probably all sick of hearing about it. But it's that serious. So keep safe. Look after each other. If you're hoarding toilet rolls, I need some. And we'll see you next time.
Thought you were about to give your address out then.
Actually.
No.
Toilet rolls and pasta, please. If anybody's got any. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Welcome to Brief History Conspiracy.
This week, this week. Go on.
Welcome to Brief History Conspiracy.
Yeah, it's your face now. You got to stop. You got to stop laughing.
Okay. All right. Serious face. Serious face.
This is a
serious
topic.
This is a serious topic.
So you can't start off too smiley and happy.
People are literally dying right now.
Yes.
Have a swig of tea.
Really that need.
Right. Okay.
He's trying to finish it, but yeah.
Slap you. Nah, drink it during the thing. Welcome to Brief History Conspiracy.
This week, the coronavirus continues.
Yeah. We'll do that one more time. I like that. Coronavirus continues. Do that one more time.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah, but I think did you think of it halfway through because you paused just for a second? Really good.